You're listening to Underground USA News.
Saturday, September 13, 2025, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has claimed that Democrats bear no responsibility for the heated rhetoric against President Donald Trump, despite years of labeling him and his supporters as fascists and Nazis, which some argue has fueled political violence, including the recent assassination of conservative activist Charlie Kirk. Critics, including Trump, contend that this inflammatory language has contributed to a dangerous political climate, with a University of Chicago poll indicating 26 million Americans justified violence to prevent Trump's return to power. While Democrats like Pelosi distance themselves from accountability, others, including some party strategists, acknowledge the rhetoric's potential to backfire, as seen in public backlash and media silence on related violent incidents. This ongoing debate highlights a deepening divide, with conservatives arguing that Democrat leaders must address their role in escalating tensions. A vigil in Boise, Idaho, for slain conservative activist Charlie Kirk descended into chaos on September 10th when a local Black Lives Matter activist, Terry Wilson, shouted profanities at the crowd, sparking a physical altercation with attendee Alfonso Ayala. The incident, captured on video, unfolded in front of the Idaho State Capitol as mourners gathered to honor Kirk, the 31-year-old Turning Point USA founder assassinated at Utah Valley University. Wilson, 41, was arrested on misdemeanor charges, including disturbing the peace and possessing a firearm and marijuana, while Ayala, 51, faced charges for disturbing the peace. The clash reflects the heightened emotions and political divisions following Kirk's death, with authorities emphasizing public safety at subsequent remembrance events. The assassination of Charlie Kirk, a prominent conservative activist and Turning Point USA founder, has sparked outrage and exposed a troubling disinformation campaign by left-wing activists. Following Kirk's murder by 22-year-old Tyler Robinson at Utah Valley University, some leftists celebrated the act online, while falsely claiming Robinson was a registered Republican and Trump supporter, a narrative quickly debunked by mainstream media and internet sleuths. These false claims, built on fabricated records of a different individual with the same name, highlight a dangerous tactic to smear conservatives and deflect responsibility for political violence. Utah Governor Spencer Cox confirmed Robinson's anti-Kirk sentiments, and evidence like bullet casings with anti-fascist messages and his cohabitation with a transgender individual further ties the act to leftist ideologies, revealing a broader pattern of incitement and division. Tyler Robinson, the 22-year-old suspect in the fatal shooting of conservative activist Charlie Kirk at Utah Valley University, was reportedly living with a transgender partner who is now cooperating with the FBI, according to multiple sources. The partner, identified as Lance Twiggs, provided incriminating text messages that aided authorities in apprehending Robinson, who confessed to the crime after a 33-hour manhunt. Initial reports revealed ammunition engraved with transgender and anti-fascist messaging. This development has sparked debate about the potential influence of personal relationships and ideological motivations behind the assassination, with conservative voices calling for a thorough examination of the suspect's background and possible radicalization. In a concerning escalation, pharmaceutical industry-backed medical organizations are reportedly threatening a physician strike to obstruct the Make America Healthy Again initiative, led by HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., which seeks to reform healthcare by prioritizing transparency and reducing Big Pharma's influence. Critics argue these groups, heavily funded by drug makers, are resisting MAHA's push for stricter oversight of direct-to-consumer drug advertising and evidence-based vaccine safety studies, claiming such reforms threaten their profits. The backlash highlights a broader struggle between entrenched corporate interests and efforts to restore public trust in healthcare, with Kennedy's agenda gaining traction among Americans demanding accountability. This standoff raises questions about whether these medical groups prioritize patient welfare or pharmaceutical loyalty, as the nation watches MAHA's fight for a healthier future. A horrific crime has rocked Dallas, Texas, where Yordanis Cobos Martinez, a 37-year-old Cuban national illegally in the U.S., beheaded 50-year-old Indian-American motel manager Chandran Nagamalaya with a machete on September 10th following a dispute over a broken washing machine. The attack, captured on surveillance footage, occurred at the downtown Suites Motel in front of Nagamalaya's wife and son, who attempted to intervene but were pushed aside. Cobos Martinez, who has a prior criminal history including charges for child sex abuse and carjacking, was arrested covered in blood, carrying the victim's cell phone and key card, and admitted to the killing. Immigration and Customs Enforcement has placed a detainer on him, noting he was released from custody in January 2025 due to Cuba's refusal to accept his deportation. This gruesome act has reignited debates over immigration enforcement and public safety, with critics arguing such acts of evil highlight the consequences of lax border policies. In a move to safeguard American interests in the intensifying US-China space race, NASA has implemented a policy effective September 5th, prohibiting Chinese nationals with valid US visas from accessing its facilities, networks, and programs. This decision, confirmed by NASA Press Secretary Bethany Stevens, reflects heightened concerns over protecting sensitive technologies as China accelerates its lunar ambitions, aiming for a 2030 moon landing, while the US targets 2027 through its Artemis program. The restrictions, which abruptly halted access for Chinese contractors and researchers, align with broader efforts to counter potential espionage risks, though they disrupt ongoing scientific collaborations. Lawmakers, including U.S. Senator Ted Cruz, Republican from Texas, emphasized the strategic importance of maintaining U.S. dominance in space, viewing it as critical to national security and economic leadership. The Environmental Protection Agency's proposal to reallocate approximately 550 million gallons of biofuel blending obligations from small to large oil refineries, covering about half of the 1.1 billion gallons exempted last month, aims to balance the interests of the agricultural sector and big oil. This compromise seeks to stabilize the market for renewable fuel credits while addressing the financial burdens on refiners, though it has drawn criticism from farm state lawmakers and biofuel producers who demand full restoration of lost demand to support rural economies. The oil industry, wary of increased compliance costs, views the partial reallocation as a pragmatic step, but tensions persist as the plan may not fully satisfy either side in the ongoing clash over the renewable fuel standard. Ford and General Motors are scaling back their electric vehicle investments, redirecting focus to gas-powered vehicles amid weak EV demand and shifting federal policies. Both automakers are responding to a lackluster market, with Ford anticipating EV losses of $5 billion to $5.5 billion in 2024 alone, while GM has delayed production and canceled a joint venture with Honda for affordable EVs. GM's strategic production was cut at key EV plants, citing the end of a $7,500 tax credit under President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill Act, which has dampened consumer interest. Ford's EV division lost $1.2 billion in Q3 2024, underscoring the financial strain of EV ambitions against a backdrop of regulatory rollback and consumer preference for traditional vehicles. This retreat reflects a pragmatic recalibration to economic realities and policy changes, prioritizing profitability over government-driven green agendas. The U.S. Air Force has taken a significant step in modernizing its strategic arsenal with the arrival of a second B-21 Raider stealth bomber at Edwards Air Force Base in California on September 11th, marking the next phase of testing for this sixth-generation aircraft. Developed by Northrop Grumman, the B-21 is designed to replace aging B-1 Lancer and B-2 Spirit bombers, offering unmatched stealth and dual nuclear conventional capabilities to ensure America's deterrence remains robust against global threats. With plans to acquire at least 100 B-21s, the Air Force is prioritizing mission systems and weapons integration testing, aiming for operational readiness by the early 2030s. This move reinforces a commitment to maintaining military superiority, vital for national security in an increasingly volatile world. Thousands gathered in London on September 13th for the Unite the Kingdom rally organized by far-right activist Tommy Robinson, real name Stephen Yaxley Lennon, filling streets in a show of support for his anti-immigration stance. The demonstration, one of the largest right-wing protests in recent UK history, saw over 100,000 participants waving British and English flags, dwarfing a smaller counter-protest by the Stand Up to Racism group. While Robinson, who claims to expose state wrongdoing, has garnered support from figures like Elon Musk, his criminal convictions and controversial views keep him at odds with mainstream politics, including Reform UK. Critics argue the rally highlights growing tensions over immigration, while supporters see it as a stand against government overreach. On September 10th, over a dozen Russian drones breached Polish airspace, prompting NATO to scramble fighter jets in a historic first, shooting down several in what Polish officials called a deliberate provocation by Moscow. The incident, involving cheap Gerber drones, has raised concerns about NATO's air defense capabilities and the reliability of U.S. support under President Trump, who ambiguously remarked, "Here we go," on social media. While Russia denies intentional targeting, European leaders, including Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk, warn of escalating tensions, with Poland invoking NATO's Article 4 for consultations. This event highlights the ongoing challenge of countering Russian aggression, while questioning America's steadfastness in defending its allies, as European nations like Germany and France bolster defenses along NATO's eastern flank. Conservative observers note with concern the escalating unrest in Nepal, where protests demanding the restoration of the monarchy have surged, prompting the interim government to deploy the army to quell demonstrations. Protesters, frustrated by political instability and the leadership of interim Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli, have clashed with security forces, with talks failing to yield a resolution. The movement, fueled by dissatisfaction with the 2008 abolition of the monarchy, reflects a broader struggle between traditional values and modern governance, raising questions about stability in the region. While the government insists on maintaining order, critics argue the heavy-handed response risks alienating citizens and deepening divisions, underscoring the need for dialogue to preserve national unity. Germany's army is pushing for a significant expansion, aiming to add 100,000 active troops to its current 62,000 by 2029 to meet NATO's heightened readiness targets in response to growing Russian aggression. Army Chief Lieutenant General Alphonse Mize, in a confidential memo, emphasized the need for a near doubling of forces and a tripling of home defense units to ensure deterrence and combat readiness, especially as NATO anticipates a potential large-scale Russian attack by 2029. This ambitious plan faces significant hurdles, including recruitment challenges, with the Bundeswehr already 20,000 troops short of its 2018 goal, and a strained budget despite plans to increase defense spending to 3.5% of GDP by 2029. The proposal reflects Germany's commitment to NATO, but raises concerns about fiscal priorities and public support for militarization in a nation historically wary of military power. On September 12th, a Palestinian employee at a hotel in Kibbutz Tizuba, near Jerusalem, stabbed 2 Israeli guests, leaving a 50-year-old man in serious condition and a 23-year-old moderately injured, in what authorities have described as a terrorist attack. The assailant, identified as a resident of East Jerusalem's Shuafat area, was subdued by an off-duty police officer and arrested, alongside 3 other suspects potentially linked to the incident. Hamas praised the attack as heroic, but did not claim responsibility, raising alarms about escalating violence in the region amid Israel's ongoing conflict in Gaza. This incident, the second militant attack in Jerusalem that week, reinforces the persistent threat of terrorism and the need for heightened vigilance to protect Israeli citizens.
You're listening to Underground USA News.